cloud. Right. And I will change the view. So I'll put it on gallery. Let's see. Okay. Well, how was your day today?
My day is just fine. Nothing bad. Just a good day, getting some work done.
All right. So I really deeply appreciate the valuable time you have taken out here for us to have a conversation. And I recall the first time I had met you, that was about 20 years ago, when you were the vice president at the Oracle University. And in the very first moment, if you recall that conversation, I had said that we will work together. And sure, after
You were right.
you decided to start your own company, and we got this beautiful opportunity to work with you. I remember the second time when we were in Lonavala, and in the totally strange, different culture for you. Of course, you have been to India several times before, but with all the people there, you felt so much at home that I just couldn't believe that how easy it is for you to just mingle anywhere around the globe. And since then, there has been a long journey. You are now author of several best-selling books, New York Times and Wall Street Journal, and you are ranked among the top 50 thinkers. And you contribute to all major journals to do with leadership. And it's just amazing. What a lovely journey you have done. I feel really privileged and honored to have this conversation with you.
Oh, well, thank you. But Dinesh, I should say that it's not top 50 thinkers in the world, it's top 50 management thinkers. So yeah. It's just a smaller range.
Well, you're getting there.
Yeah, no, I feel delighted to have my work recognized.
No, I think from the very first moment, I was really impressed by your brilliance and the conversations we've had over the years. But then you also as a global citizen, because last time we compared notes, you mentioned, which both of us agreed on that most people around the globe want genuine contribution and authentic appreciation. And today, what I want is to get your views on leadership, because you have spent almost all your life now on researching on leadership. And the question is that I feel that the most important thing for any human being is their well-being. So that's a good starting point. What does well-being mean to you, and how you are coaching and guiding, in your experience, all the leaders of wonderful, great organizations like Apple and Google and so on, about their well-being and the teams they are leading, the well-being of their team. So 2 questions. What does well-being mean to you, and how you are guiding the leaders towards their well-being and their team's well-being?
Well, I've never thought particularly about a definition of well-being, but I'll tell you what comes to mind is that it's not only that we're feeling well, like we're doing our work well, we're going through life well, that like maybe that there's a harmony between what's on the outside and what's on the inside. One of the last pieces of research I've done was looking at really influential, impactful people. And one of the things we find is that they're finishers. They get the job done. They finish strong. But it's not just that their work is strong, that they finish strong, that they finish a race with the same well-being that they started the race. They don't finish exhausted, they don't finish resentful, bitter, injured by that challenge, that they're actually made stronger by that challenge. So, they finish well, but then they finish with well-being as well. And so that's what I think about well-being is like, it's the quality of our work, but it's the state with which we do that work and the state with which we end one piece of work and begin another.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's
it's like
because
that we're not hurt. In some ways, it's that we work without injury. to ourselves and to others.
Very, very well expressed, because many leaders I run into, they are totally, they're not in much balance, because they have done extremely well in one area, one aspect. Let's say their professional life is excellent and they are the icon, and and we have several of those right here in Bay Area. But at the same time, if you look at their, either the physical health is not in good shape, they have totally been out of, and they, some of them actually have to pay a very heavy price for that, or their relationships are not in balance. And you are one of the persons I've always admired. You have a very good balance of your professional life and of your, personal life, physical well-being. And I got several opportunities for walk together. So you care for your physical well-being and of course your relationships and everything. So how do you personally keep that balance in the chaotic world and the exponential growing world of ours?
Well, it's not always a balance. I think balance is such a interesting word, like work-life balance, like at any moment they should be in balance. But, I found that anything sort of worth any significant contribution comes at a cost. And, I think it is one of the things that we misunderstand, that like somehow good work doesn't involve effort, like hard effort and sacrifice. And here's what I've experienced. I can't speak for anyone else, but any important contribution I've made in the work world or in the world writ large has come at a sacrifice. That it has been hard, and I've had to make trade-offs, and I've had to miss things with my family. And so I can't say that I feel like, at any given moment, like everything is in harmony. I've also to maintain a very harmonious family life, I've had to make all sorts of trade-offs with work. Like, no, I'm not going to take that promotion. No, I'm not going to take that engagement. No, I can't participate in that. So I feel like sacrifice has been such a part of my world, but that I feel like on balance, I am satisfied with how I am spending my time. I'm satisfied with the quality of relationships. That it's like, it's not in balance at any moment, but like when you weigh it together on balance, one feels healthy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that it hasn't come easily. It's come with a lot of trade-offs and choices and dialogue with my family. Like, well, what should I do? Should I back off here? And, I remember at one point saying to my son, who was, maybe 10 years old, and I'm, having to decide, do I do all these things and trips all around the world? And I remember saying, like, Josh, if you ever feel like I'm not home when you need me home, like, would you just kind of like raise your hand and let me know this? And I didn't put it on him for him to decide, but I had to have people who were a balance to me. And, sometimes I needed him to know, like, no, Mom, it's good. You go do that thing, versus, oh, no, actually, maybe you should stay home. So I don't know. It's taken a whole team of people to make sure that on balance, I feel harmony.
Well, you're absolutely right. No one feels that like all the time, but the fact that you are mindful and you are aware and you are doing those trade-offs, I find that people who are not aware, or they don't pay attention or don't put priority, then they're not able to find that balance, and then they regret towards the end of their life. So I always ask one question, that if today was the last day or this year was the last year of your life, would you be pretty satisfied with your life, the way you have led so far? And that people who are in balance, they come out, yes, I'm pretty satisfied. And people who are not in balance, a lot of regrets show up at that time. So let me ask you this. What advice would you give to leaders when you find leaders who themselves ask you that, look, I'm totally not feeling good about what I'm doing right now. I'm totally focused on one area. and what can I do? Have you run into such leaders when they're too focused on one area?
Well, of course. And I think the danger is when people are really out of alignment and out of balance is that they swing the other direction. Oh, I'm going to quit my job and spend all my time at home, and their family's like, really? All your time? um, and so I think it's important not to overcorrect, kind of like that panic of, okay, I'm too far over here, let me swing to this far. It's just to like be kind of moving things constantly into this harmonious state. And I think it's different for everyone. For me, I feel like I found that balance. If I were to get notice that my days on earth were numbered, I think a lot of time people think, oh, well, then I would like quit my job and I would travel, or I would spend all the time, with my family and loved ones. And I'm not sure I would do a thing differently. I would just continue to do what I was doing. I might not answer a few emails, but.
All right. Now, your role as when you were part of HR, what advice would you give to any VP of HR or people who are responsible for the well-being of employees? There is a lot of lip service and a lot of isolated efforts, as I see. A lot of organizations encourage physical wellness, and they would offer, $500 go to gym membership, and encourage people to do mindfulness, different practices. But there is not too many comprehensive programs, and also the leaders are not willing to. Still, the leadership is all about a strong leadership. Now, you have done tremendous research on that aspect of leadership. So as we are moving into this, again, I call it exponential growth era, and we are getting faster and faster, we're running faster. How can leaders slow down inside to cope up with this speed, which is, taking us to, new heights outside? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I do have some thoughts. I don't have any advice, because who am I, to give advice on someone else's situation, but I do have things, to consider when you look at what is a leader's role in creating well-being in the workplace. Here's what I have found in my research is, so I've studied what leaders do that allow people to contribute fully, meaning their full intelligence, their full capability, their full creativity. And the way that a leader shows up and operates has a massive impact on whether or not people contribute wholly, and describe that experience as, well, that was tiring, because like I'm giving everything that I've got. It's tiring, but yet it's strangely exhilarating. Kind of like that feeling when you have a great workout where you're tired, like, oh, I gave that everything I had, I'm tired, but strangely I feel invigorated. Like that gave me energy rather than took energy. Like a leader can create an environment where people contribute fully and feel like that, or they create an environment where people hold back, play it safe, offer a fraction of their capability, and then they describe that experience as frustrating and draining and exhausting. And there's probably, a couple ideas that come out of this. Number one is that, we don't tend to burn out because we have too much work. I think there's this sort of notion that people have these heavy workloads, they're burnt out, it compromises well-being. Everything in my research says that when people contribute wholly, it's energizing. But when people are forced to hold back or have to suppress that desire to contribute, that is what creates exhaustion and drain and burnout inside of organizations. So I think the first lesson for leaders is, one, the way you lead matters, and it can affect either of those two, that instead of trying to create well-being by pulling back, like reducing people's workload, let's kind of take it easy, let's go easy. Actually, that's a primed environment for burnout, actually. That one of the things that leaders can do to create well-being in organizations is to give people a chance to contribute fully, like make sure their ideas are used and heard and people are extended and challenged. That creates, vitality inside of organizations. And then I think there's a third lesson in this, which is if you want people's whole contribution, all their best thinking, all their best ideas, you just simply need to treat people as whole human beings. I joined the workforce in a time where people showed up as sort of slices. Like, this is a slice of my life. This is my work self. This is me in a suit. This is me showing up like dressed for success, professional, behaving professionally. And those other parts of my life, let me keep those separate. And some people literally had to hang their true self, sort of on the coat rack before going into the office. And we know what happens when people do that. But one of the things I love about working in today's environment is that people don't feel like they have to hide their personal life, their life in the community. And I think as more managers treat people as whole, with full lives, with personal lives, with family obligations, with community interests, with hobbies, with like joys and sorrows. And they see people as like, man, this is not a worker. This is not a walking job description or a walking CV. This is like a whole human being who comes to us with brilliance, but also comes to us with problems, illness and mental illness. Like when leaders can see that whole person, then you create an environment where people can work authentically and they can contribute wholly and wholeheartedly. And that is well-being.
Thank you so much for a lovely description of that, because that's precisely, we are taking a giant leap from this sliced person you described to a whole person, a complete person. And I think the pandemic even made that even sharper. So the challenge now is that how do we create that culture of whole human being? And it's when I look back, it is no less than when we had the major onset of like quality culture. So it was a massive movement back in the 90s. Then we had a massive collaborative culture, and I was consulting with Cisco in those days, and there were big push on collaborative culture. So we have gone through those cultural changes, and now this whole person is coming, and the well-being is coming. What kind of number one, do you see it as a massive culture change, culture shift for organization? And if it is, then what kind of effort is required to adopt this new culture in which we treat people as humans as whole?
Yeah, I don't know that I see it as a massive change. I see it as very iterative. I see it as evolutionary. I see it as progress. Getting incrementally better at something. And, what does it take? I think I'm not sure I know how to answer that directly, but I will tell you what I've observed. And that is that people need two conditions to be able to contribute fully, wholeheartedly. And, people need safety. They need, so that's the first condition. They need psychological safety. They need intellectual safety, physical safety. They need to know that, and there's so many things that a leader can do to create that. They can not just treat people as a set of skills. They can look for what I call their natural or their native genius. Like, what is it that they do brilliantly? Like, one of the amazing things happen on teams where everyone knows what each other is naturally brilliant at. Like, oh, Dinesh is amazing at this. Like, we need to borrow his brain for this. Like, Liz, she's pretty good at that. Like, she's our go-to person every time we need this. And where that's seen and respected and talked about on a team, like, pretty good things happen. Where people feel like they know where it's okay to experiment and make mistakes. And they also know where it's not okay. Sort of like, I refer to this as the difference between like the playgrounds versus the freeways of the business. Like, there are some things where, you know what, you can't make mistakes. Like, truth be told, this is not a place to experiment and be innovative and to express yourself. Like, this is a place where we have to do it exactly right.
Mhm.
And we have to be a little controlling in that space. But over here, these are the playgrounds, because these other spaces are like freeways. You make a small mistake and it can have devastating consequences to individuals, to businesses, to communities. But then there's these other places that are playgrounds. Like, you know what? Kind of like, go for it, try things, express yourself, experiment. And people need to understand the delineation. Just having this like hippie free for all, be creative, collaborate, innovate, is not helpful. I think it's negatively helpful. But so that's the first condition, is creating safety. And then the second is creating stretch, where, again, well-being is also a function of challenge and impact and influence and finding success, and that feel good that comes from doing something hard and doing something hard collectively. And so when leaders can not just create safety, but they can also stretch their teams with big challenges and hard-hitting debates, and kind of finding comfort in asking people to be uncomfortable and living in a state of discomfort. Like, I think when those two dynamics come together, some pretty amazing things happen.
Well, very well said. Your point is well taken. If you look at the development of human engineering at the workplace, when I said massive, I meant in the last 10, 15 years, but you are absolutely right. The change has been iterative. If we go back to 100 years ago, when primary contract between workers, industrial workers, and corporations was, you come here, you give us time, and we'll give you financial support for that. Then, of course, our industrial engineers came, Gilbreth and Taylor, and they started designing workplace more comfortable, better, and they found productivity goes up. Then we came up all the intrinsic, extrinsic reward, and then we find that the kind of things you just mentioned, that if you create a workplace where people feel intrinsic motivation, then they're much more better contributor. And I think in that sense, it's an iterative journey. But now come 2023, and there is a tug of war. Many managers and many leaders I talk to, they have this desire. They want workers to come back. Somehow they want to see workers back in the office, physical contact. And they give me a lot of reasons for that. It's an informal conversation by the coffee table or whatever. And workers, on the other hand, have tasted now the joy of being whole, because now they have enjoyed their family life. They know what it means to have breakfast with your children and so on. And they're doing a great job, because productivity has not gone down. Productivity is still going up. So this tug of war, how will it end? How will it resolve? Where employees want to be viewed as whole, and management still, some leaders, not all, but some leaders still trying to pull them back to the old way. In the old ways, we did not want to touch their personal life. In the old ways, that we kept them separate. But now more and more organizations are involving, engaging the families and doing things together. So what are your views? How do we bridge that gap?
Well, I think intelligent leaders and intelligent organizations will find this equilibrium, because I don't think the answer lies in just bring people back to the office. There's lots of toxicity that's happening there. There's a reason why people don't want to go back to the office, whether it's what happens in the office, the commute that entails missing their families. But I don't think the answer is, well, just let's all kind of work in our little cubicles at home. Like, there's the cubicle in the office versus like, okay, here I am in my little space at home. Like, people thrive with interaction, and the best thinking, best ideas tends to come out of interaction. And some of that can be done digitally, and some of that is best done physically together. And we see this in other parts of our life, like when people come to worship together, communities of faith. Well, some of that can be done at home, and maybe in a corner of your house or off in a cave meditating, but a lot of that goodness happens when people come together and share space and breathe the same air and break bread. And I think the workplace is no different. There are some things that are best done together. And what we have this tremendous opportunity is to thin slice this and to not just either call people back or leave people at home, but to figure out, when do we want to gather and why? And maybe we were gathering just for the sake of it, when now we have to think, when do we bring people together? When do we need minds in a room together? And when can we just have conversations from afar? And I have the utmost confidence that organizations will figure this out if we don't shut off our brains and either, demand people come back or cave to a cry for people to be able to just stay home, because I don't know that it's good for people to just remain in isolation.
Right. No,
Like sometimes our true friends call us out of isolation and say, no, come back to the group. Like, you will benefit from this.
That brings to the very important question, where I call it a massive shift. I think what I feel is that it does not matter. And I made this paradigm shift myself. And the shift is that I used to feel that doing all the transformational leadership workshops, we used to do in Dharamshala with Dalai Lama and so on, I used to feel that for us to have a deep sense of connection, we need to be together, the old paradigm. We need to be together in a room, and then we need to, be able to see each other in the eyes. But I'm finding that it's no longer needed, because I could be sitting with someone in the room and not feel connected. And right now, you and I, we are sitting in separate places, but there is a strong sense of connection. I'm feeling that I'm sitting right with you in the room. So what I have come to realize, that when I have the intention to deeply connect with another person, and the other person also has that intention, then it doesn't matter whether we are remote or technology doesn't interfere. Whereas in the past, I used to think that it's not possible. So I have shifted my belief so now the challenge is, how do we create those deep relationships where with my own self and with the other people? Because ultimately, if we can create those deeper relationships, everything else becomes easier. Collaboration and all the things you described, and the key concepts you have, what I have understood from your books, and I'm the first one to get your book and read them. So Multiplier, right there, this idea of energizing people. So I feel to energize people, you need to be deeply connected, like you said, showing up in the workplace with who you authentically are. And then you can inspire others to show up authentically. So that is a big shift, because I find in order to do that, in order to connect with your deeper self, I had interviewed Marshall Goldsmith many years ago in the Bay Area, and he had talked about transcending, going beyond your ego. Then when the movement of the surrender comes and you do something with a sense of service, and then it becomes easier to connect with yourself and connect with others, and the creativity flows. What can we do to create that kind of workplace, that kind of deep connections where people truly are creative and they're really enjoying their life and their work? There is no work in that moment. You're just in the lovely place of creativity and contributing.
Mm.
How do we create that workplace?
Well, it's been my observation that people do their best work and feel their best when they are serving. And, I think we maybe as a society need to return to this notion of I'm here to serve. My job is to serve. Technology, we've had technology serving us, serving up content, serving our needs, customizing, personalizing. It's very, very easy to get into I am the customer, I am served by others mentality. And I think what builds those deeper bonds and what creates real joy is when people show up assuming their job is to serve. They are the servant, not the served. And some of that can be done. I don't want to say best, because I don't want to get into a debate or a war on, well, do we have to be in person or remote? I don't think that's the point. It's that sometimes it's easier to be of service and to serve others when we can be with them.
Well, that's a beautiful way you describe that. And I think if we can create that mindset, and more people come with that mindset to the workplace, I think we can make it a place. It'll no longer be a workplace. We should call it joy place, because that's where we are spending so much of our life. And if we can make that place a joyful place, a creative place, so we come back more energized. And we used to, if you remember, we used to call it TGIM clubs, not TGIF. Thank God it's Monday Club.
That's what I've always felt. I'm a work apologist. To me, work is joy. And I think dangerous things happen when we shrink from work and we see it as the evil and the enemy to well-being. I think work is part of well-being.
Excellent. Any other thought you have before we wrap up this conversation? And thank you again for your insights and your great examples. And, I love that. So any other thought you have, any parting thought for well-being?
Well, I don't know that I have anything particular other than well-being is a collective, that it's hard for one person to be well when others around them aren't.
Now, one thing I want to leave you for the future, for our next conversation or so. We know that people, Marshall Goldsmith and other leaders, they've always given back. And Peter Block, I know he's also giving back in his community. So I've been thinking about creating maybe a group of 100. 100 seems to be a good number, and get them to those people who are interested in giving back to the society, and call them whatever name we like, conscious leaders, and there's one good name or any other name is good. And then every month we do a 1-hour session with them. And that's where you can talk about it. Then we can invite other people who can talk about it. So we can create a program for a year in which they get to listen to about 12 people. And then at the end of that, we give them something solid. And in that process, we give back to the 100 new leaders. And again, our thinking would be that you give back to other 100. So what do you think about that? Something like that.
It's something I'm part of. Marshall Goldsmith established this group called the Marshall Goldsmith 100.
Right.
And it started with first he was going to find 10 people to teach everything he knew and kind of pour into them. And then, and now it's like 400 people. But I recommend looking at this effort that Marshall's put in place. I'm part of it. I'm one of those people who is just receiving the bounty of this community and also trying to give and give back. And it's a really wonderful active effort going on.
Well, thank you so much. And I'll look into it also, and look forward to many more conversations with you. And thanks again for your time.
Yeah, well, good talking to you, Dinesh.
Have a lovely day.
Be well.
Bye-bye.